Hi, I'm Dr. John Lund, author of How to Hug a Porcupine. And we've been talking about toxic behaviors as a behavior that is anything that doesn't allow you or someone else to become their highest and best self. We focused on criticism. We talked about how criticism is much like conforming a sponge to the shape that you want, and then when you let go of that criticism, the sponge goes back to its natural shape. And so it is with human personalities. So criticism doesn't change behavior, and you need to take a very careful look at that because real change takes place from the inside out. Now, people can be made aware of things and then process that information and decide to make some changes, but how it's presented will determine whether or not it's truly toxic or not. And when I say toxic, what I'm talking about here is poison to the person, meaning that they're going to react to the manner in which you presented the material to them, not necessarily that the content isn't valid. So we have to figure out a way of how to communicate with each other, especially in a husband-wife relationship that respects the boundary of each other. Let me give you an example. My wife, for example, if I were to say to her, honey, I have a criticism I'd like to share with you. Well, she would ask me to write it down. And the reason she wants it written down is that she can't get past my facial expression and my tone of voice. And so those two things working together or against me means that she can't focus, which I'm going to just briefly mention about communications. When we talk about communications, there are three message systems. The message systems are facial expression and body language, tone of voice, and then the choice of words. Those are the three different systems we use. Well, in my wife's case, she can't get by my facial expression and my tone of voice. So she's asked that if I have a criticism of her, that I write it down. And then she will read it and get back to me. Now that's how we process for the two of us. For me, I want to know on a scale of 1 to 10, if the criticism, how painful it is. Emotionally painful. I mean, am I going to have to make a complete behavioral change in my personality? And so I want to know on a scale of 1 to 10. So what she says to me is, we've been doing this, quite frankly, we've been married 47 years. We've been doing this for 35 years actively. And so my wife says to me, she'll say, it's a 2 or a 9. We don't have any other numbers anymore. We used to have 1s and 5s, but now it's a 2 or a 9. So my wife will come in and she'll say, I have a 2. Well, that tells me that that's generally something, maybe some things that I didn't do that I needed to do, or that I promised I was going to do that I haven't done. And that's kind of like an example of a 2. And then in that case, I'll say, probably 90% of the time, yes. This happened the other day that she had a 2, but I was preparing a lecture to give at a university, and I was right in the middle of that. This would not have been a good time to interrupt me for that, and this is very difficult, and I want to underscore what happens for most of us. If I went back into your culture, into how you were raised, I would probably find that what gave you permission to share criticism was your being emotionally upset. And different families have different permission structures that they have. But most people do not communicate their negativity unless they're feeling upset. And so it's being upset that gives them their permission. It's not the best interest of the other person. It's their frustration that motivates them. It's their being upset. It's their being disappointed. Whatever it may be that's motivating them. But here's the problem. When they go now to deliver it, the focus will not be on the message. The focus is going to be on, and not on the content at all, the focus is going to be on the delivery system. And most people are going to respond to a facial expression, body language, and tone of voice as negative. They're going to respond with negative coming back to them. Oh yeah, well, there's some things I want to talk to you about. And so we find that if we really want to be effective in dealing with criticism, then we need to develop a way between husbands and wives to communicate. So in the final analysis of how I want to be communicated with criticism is my wife gives me a scale of 2 or 9 now. And then finally, what she will then do is if it's a 9, then I need time to prepare myself. If she wants World War III, we can jump into that. But if she doesn't want World War III, I need to prepare myself. Now, that's one example of how a husband and a wife can develop a communication system to deal with the negative that can be positive. Now, here's the bottom line again. Most relationships fail not because people didn't love each other, but because of their inability to deal with the negative.